Dad showed me how she thought, always ending in 40.
It worked. You did it, Noah.
Redwood Hills, midnight. Ethan Vale, a sleepless AICEO, finds his vault sealed and his accounts frozen. Then, soft knocking. A shivering 9-year-old at the glass, clutching a scuffed Rubik's Cube. "I can open the big machine," he whispers. Ethan lets him in. Hope collides with fear. The lock clicks, alarms bloom, a phantom copy starts to stream. Who set the trap, and why is the child next? Redwood Hills held its breath at 12:17 a.m. Fog pressed against the glass, soft and bright, like a dimmed screen. Ethan Vale stood barefoot on concrete, a gray cashmere hoodie pulled over a black tee, lean frame still humming from a late run. On the desk, a graphite Fox keychain lay cool in his palm. NFOX07, the first garage prototype. When his mind raced, he worked the Fox like a worrystone, thumb tracing the tiny etch. He turned back to the rack in the alcove. The HSM vault flickered in hushed blues and greens. A matte block of certainty, he had always called it, where root keys lived, where model weights slept. Tonight, certainty blinked red. Access denied. He tried again. The passphrase that had never failed. The second factor on his wrist. The rotating codes that rolled like tides. Access denied. The room made a tight sound in his ears. He cracked the window and let cold air slide over his face. At 9 a.m., he was due to finalize a licensing deal that would keep his engineers employed through winter and put their safety layer into clinics that needed it now. It was not just money. It was the promise he had made to himself after the garage days, when the Fox on his keychain was still a joke between two people who believed code could be kind. He opened the out-of-band console. Logs scrolled like rain. He scrolled back. A timestamp glowed in the stream, small and obvious and wrong. 2040. Account change. Fallback invalidated. Admin rotation executed. He swallowed. "No," he said into the empty house, as if the vault could be reasoned with. He entered the emergency sequence for an offline wake. The one he had written on a night he could not stop thinking about failure and the people who would pay if he missed. The vault accepted the first 2 steps. On the third, it paused, almost thinking, almost merciful. Access denied. Fallback revoked. He pressed his knuckles to his brow, glasses cool against his skin. Someone with knowledge had done this, not a random exploit, not a bored attacker. Someone who knew his disaster playbook, the dead man intervals, the rhythm he favored when he needed to rebuild trust with a machine. A rhythm he had once shared with only one other person. He let that thought pass. Let it go out of the window with the fog. He triggered the tamper mesh audit. Healthy. He ran hardware self-tests. Clean. He pinged the hardware enclave for watermark attestation. The enclave answered, slow but steady, like a heart that had not lost the beat. Good. The provenance chain still lived. If the weights were asleep, they were at least still his. He checked the accounts that paid his people and bought their groceries. Frozen. He checked the escrow that kept his servers lit. Present, but grayed out. He pictured the faces at stand-up, the junior engineer who had saved a hospital deployment with a 4-line patch, the staffer who texted him discount codes because she worried he forgot to eat. He pictured the boy at the clinic last month who had asked if the robots were kind. "They will be," he had said, "or they won't live here." He opened a drawer and found a photo he had tucked away months ago. 2 people in a garage with bad lighting and good coffee. A whiteboard Fox, lopsided and grinning. He did not set the photo upright. He set the Fox keychain on top of it instead, a small, quiet weight. He returned to the console and hunted the margins. The code paths were unremarkable, the edits neat. A professional kind of crime. He ran a local diff on the auth policy, then a diff on himself. The version of Ethan that had once believed this could never happen had been naive. The version at the console now was not. "Okay," he said to the room. "We work the problem." He mapped the failure graph on a legal pad. If the vault would not yield, he would still need to prove he had not tampered with what lay inside. The watermark attestation could help. The hardware signatures could help. The court of public opinion would not. He knew how fast a headline could turn into a verdict. He saved the audit bundle to an encrypted stick and slipped it into his pocket. He checked the cameras. The driveway was quiet, the hillside a slow black river. A coyote passed in the lower right frame, thin and elegant, the kind that survives by learning every path twice. His phone vibrated on the desk. Not the consumer line. The secure line only a handful of people could ring. The screen flashed, white on black, stark as a command. Incoming, sec line, caller waiting. He did not move at first. He watched the light blink, steady, patient, like breath. He felt the fox under his thumb, another vibration. The screen tagged the caller. A name rose and held. Ava Morell. Ethan let the room go very still. The vault's red eye watched him. The photograph stayed face down. Outside, fog beaded into rain. He reached for the phone and paused, hand suspended over the choice that would open a locked door, not in the machine, but in him. He had built a life on version control and careful merges. Some branches never reconcile. The phone vibrated again, bright and insistent in the dark. He drew a breath and touched the screen. The secure line opened with a faint hum, like the sound of air caught in a wire. Ethan steadied himself against the desk, fingers brushing the Fox keychain. The screen brightened, and then her face appeared. Ava Morell. Her smile was not warm, it was precise, sharp, as if carved out of glass. "You'll never access it again," she said. No preamble, no hello. Just a blade pressed to the past. Ethan felt his chest tighten, not in fear, but in memory. Once those lips had spoken in soft laughter, bent over late-night takeout in the garage. Now they shaped only threats. "Ava," he said evenly, "you don't need to do this." Her laugh was short. "Don't I?" "Tomorrow, you'll be exposed for what you are. The regulators are ready. Kestrel has aligned the pieces. You'll stand in front of the world as the man who weaponized AI." He tried to read her eyes. Behind the chill, there was something else. Fatigue, maybe guilt, but she had always been good at disguises. "You know me better than that," he said softly. Her reply was immediate. "I used to." Not anymore. The call ended with a snap. The screen went black, leaving his reflection staring back at him. Hazel eyes under tousled hair, a man who suddenly felt like he was 2 steps behind instead of ahead. Seconds later, alerts cascaded across his monitors. Corporate accounts, frozen. Personal accounts, frozen. Escrow, locked in review. He typed commands, hoping for a mistake. None came. The strike was coordinated. Every safety net he'd built had been cut in the span of minutes. He dropped into the chair, rubbing his temples. Ava had been COO, co-founder and confidant. She had known the fallback codes, the rhythms of his hand when typing, even his obsession with redundancy. She had taken those intimacies and weaponized them. The Fox keychain clinked against the desk. He picked it up and stared at it, tracing its lines the way he used to trace hers, a symbol of creation, now a reminder of betrayal. The house was quiet, too quiet. Redwood Hills had always been a sanctuary, a minimalist space of glass and steel perched over the valley. But tonight, its stillness felt hostile, as though the walls were listening. He opened his laptop and pulled up the regulatory notices. They weren't subtle. Accusations of misuse, whispers of cyber attack training, speculation about ties to hostile actors. All seeded, all timed, all designed to break him before morning. He rose, pacing the floor. "Think," he muttered. "Think, Ethan." But his mind kept circling back to Ava. Why now? Why with such precision? And what leverage did she hold beyond the vault? His phone buzzed again, this time not the secure line. A message alert. Unknown number. "This isn't about you. It's about what he left behind." He froze, reading it twice, then again. What he left behind. The only he that mattered was Min Park, Noah's father, his late engineer, the one whose death 3 months ago had been called a stroke. Min, who had coded like music and believed trust was a currency more valuable than venture capital. Min, who had always left quiet breadcrumbs in his work, just in case. Ethan's chest felt heavier. He typed back, hands steady, though his pulse wasn't. "Ethan, who are you?" No reply, just silence. He dropped the phone onto the desk and turned toward the window. Rain streaked down, blurring the view of the hillside below. He told himself he was still in control, still, the architect of his fate. But the words felt thin. A knock broke the silence. He stiffened. It wasn't loud, not frantic. Just 3 soft taps against glass. He turned, scanning the shadows across his open living room until he saw it. The outline of a child, small and still, framed in the sliding glass door. The boy's shoulders were hunched, his clothes damp, his backpack torn. In his hands he held something familiar, something incongruous against the night, a scuffed Rubik's Cube, the stickers worn nearly white from too much twisting. Ethan blinked, as if the storm outside had conjured him. He stepped closer. The boy lifted his gaze, and Ethan saw dark, searching eyes. "Please," the child whispered through the glass, "can you open the big machine upstairs?" I think I can help. Ethan's breath caught. He didn't know the boy's name, but the way his voice wavered carried the weight of truth. And just like that, the world shifted again. Ethan slid the glass door open, the rain sweeping in, cold and insistent. The boy stepped inside, dripping onto the polished concrete floor. He clutched the Rubik's Cube tight, as though it were armor. His backpack sagged on one strap, torn at the seam. Ethan crouched to meet his eyes. "You shouldn't be out here alone." The boy's voice trembled. I had to keep moving. Men were following me. From the bus stop, Ethan studied him. 9, maybe. Hair plastered from rain, lips pale. He looked like a kid who'd been running for more than just tonight. "You said you could help with the machine upstairs." Ethan kept his tone steady, careful not to sound threatening. "What did you mean?" The boy pressed the cube between his hands. "I've seen numbers like that before. My dad used to talk about them. The way lights blink. Euler's phi function. Always ending in 40. His words tumbled out fast, like he'd rehearsed them just to stay brave. Ethan's breath caught. Ava's habits. Ava's code, and the boy knew it. "What's your name?" Ethan asked quietly. "Noah? Noah Park." The name hit harder than he expected. Min Park's son. Min, whose death had seemed too sudden, too clean. Ethan straightened, unease spreading. "Your father. He worked with me." Noah nodded, eyes down. "He told me if something ever happened, to watch for patterns. He said someone would try to erase his work." He twisted the cube, stopping at a half-solved side. "I think that's what's happening, isn't it?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Instead, he offered a towel from the cabinet. Noah wiped his face, but his hands never let go of the cube. "Why come here?" Ethan asked. "My dad said you were the only one who still believed in protecting things. He said if it ever got too dangerous, I should find you." Noah's gaze flicked up, steady, despite the quiver in his voice. "Can I stay here tonight?" "Just one night? I don't want them to find me." The storm hammered harder against the glass. Ethan looked at the boy. Wet, trembling, clutching a puzzle as if it held his father's. Ghost. And something in him shifted. "You can stay," Ethan said finally. "But we're going upstairs first." Noah followed him into the alcove where the vault waited, its light steady. its red denial still pulsing like a wound. The boy stepped closer, studying the blinking relay patterns the way another child might study a board game. "See how it pauses?" Noah whispered, "like it's waiting." Ethan frowned. "Waiting for what?" "For her numbers," Noah said. He twisted the cube in his hands, fingers quick, restless. "Dad showed me how she thought. She always used phi, and she always ended in 40. Ethan leaned closer, pulse rising. The boy was seeing what he had missed, what he had been too close to notice. Noah touched the keypad lightly, not typing, just hovering, as though reading a language only he knew. "What if it's her resignation date?" Noah murmured. "With phi." "That would make sense." Ethan swallowed. "You're guessing." The boy shook his head. "I know how she hides things. Dad made me practice." He hesitated, then entered a sequence. Phi of 144 added to the resignation date Ava had filed, ending in 40. The vault paused. The relays clicked. For a breathless second, silence. Then, green. Access granted. Ethan exhaled, almost laughing in disbelief. The model weights appeared on the display, line after line of a proof that the lifeblood of his company still existed. Relief cut through him like air after drowning, but it didn't last. A log blinked open, unbidden. Outbound stream detected. A phantom copy was already being siphoned elsewhere. Ethan's jaw tightened. It wasn't just a lockout, it was theft, and now they were already too late. Noah stared at the screen, cube frozen in his hands. "Mr. Vale, what does that mean?" Ethan's eyes darkened. "It means someone wanted us to open it." Outside, thunder rolled, the storm swelling as if to answer. The green light on the vault glowed steady, mocking. Ethan's relief curdled into dread as the outbound log scrolled across. The monitor. Packets leaving, silent and merciless, a phantom hand pulling secrets into the dark. Noah clutched the Rubik's Cube to his chest. "They're stealing it right now, aren't they?" Ethan's throat felt tight. "Yes, and we gave them the key." The boy's eyes widened, but he didn't look away. He was braver than most adults Ethan had faced in boardrooms, braver than Ethan felt in this moment. He leaned closer to the console, scanning the trace. The destination was masked, buried behind onion roots and mirrored nodes, but the signature was clear enough. Someone had prepared this exact breach, waiting for the vault to be unlocked. The Fox keychain pressed against his palm as if reminding him who he once was. The man who built things to protect, not to destroy. "Can you stop it?" Noah asked, voice breaking. Ethan shook his head. "Not from here. If I cut it midstream, they'll claim I tampered. The regulators will believe them." He could already hear Ava's voice in his memory, cold and triumphant. Weaponized AI. He destroyed the logs to cover his tracks. He slammed the console shut, the sound echoing through the minimalist room. Before he could speak again, a new sound filled the air. A pounding. Not from the vault, not from the storm, but from the front gate. Ethan froze. The cameras lit up. Black SUVs lined the driveway, their headlights cutting through the rain. Men in dark coats stood at the gate, pounding with the authority of those who carried warrants and didn't wait for answers. Noah's breath quickened. "It's them. They followed me here." Ethan grabbed his arm, steadying him. "No, this isn't random. They knew exactly when to come." A voice boomed from outside, muffled but commanding. "Ethan Vale! Federal writ. Open the gate." The monitors flickered, flashing a warrant code. Allegations scrolled in cold white text. Training models for cyber attacks on hospitals. Unauthorized transfer of sensitive model weights. It was everything Ava had promised. Ethan's mind raced. If he surrendered now, it wouldn't matter that the accusations were false. By morning, he'd be headlines. The boy forgotten. The truth buried. Noah tugged his sleeve. "We can't stay here." Ethan's eyes darted to the far corner of the room, an old air duct from the Prohibition era, hidden behind a sliding panel he'd kept for nostalgia. Hardly anyone knew it was there. He knelt, pushing the panel aside. Dust scattered as the narrow shaft yawned open. He turned to Noah. "It's not safe, but it's better than what's waiting at the door. Crawl fast. Don't stop," the boy nodded, sliding into the duct with surprising agility, cube still in hand. Ethan grabbed the manifest printout and, more importantly, the Enclave's watermark token, a tiny piece of hardware proof that might still clear his name. He shoved them into his pocket, then pulled himself into the duct just as the gate gave way. Boots thundered against the floorboards. Voices filled the house, shouting commands. "Vault secure," someone barked. "Search for evidence." Ethan and Noah crawled through the narrow metal shaft, breath echoing, dust choking their throats. The storm outside was their cover, the duct their lifeline. After what felt like forever, they dropped into the undercarriage of the hillside garage. The rain poured down, soaking them instantly. Ethan glanced back. Sirens painted the fog with red and blue. He grabbed Noah's hand. "We move now." Together, they slipped into the night, carrying only the manifest and the watermark token. The weights were gone, the house was compromised, but Ethan still had something the world hadn't stolen yet: proof, and the boy beside him. Rain hammered the hillside road as Ethan and Noah ran, their breaths tearing through the night. Behind them, shouts echoed from the house, agents or mercenaries. It no longer mattered. The storm had swallowed the once safe walls of Redwood Hills. They ducked into the shadows of an overgrown footpath, climbing down to where the trees thickened. Ethan's hoodie clung to his skin, his glasses speckled with rain. The boy's small hand gripped his fiercely, the Rubik's Cube rattling against his chest like a talisman. "Where are we going?" Noah gasped. "Anywhere but here," Ethan said, voice steady despite the fire in his lungs. A rusted garage loomed near the road, half hidden by ivy and neglect. Ethan shoved the door open with his shoulder. Inside smelled of oil and damp wood, but it was dry. They collapsed against the wall, rain dripping off their clothes. Ethan took out his backup phone, a rugged device meant to be untouchable. He pried open the casing, fingers quick and precise. Beneath the circuit board, a faint glow pulsed. His stomach dropped. A beacon. A tracker. Someone had been feeding their every move back to the enemy. His enemy. Noah leaned close, whispering, "Is that bad?" Ethan crushed the device under his heel. Plastic cracked, sparks hissed. "Bad doesn't cover it. Someone I trusted sold me out." He searched his pockets. The watermark token was safe, the manifest damp but intact. He had just enough to prove something, if they lived long enough to use it. Noah pulled a sketchbook from his torn backpack, flipping to a fresh page. He drew quickly, pencil strokes sharp and deliberate. Ethan blinked. "What are you doing?" "I saw him. The man who's been following me. At the bus stop. And again on the hill." Ethan leaned closer as the lines came together. A cap pulled low, eyes hidden. A ring etched with a hawk's head. Hawk. Kestrel. The name hissed through Ethan's mind. Kestrel Capital. Defense-aligned investors with a history of circling tech companies like carrion birds. He'd turned down their money once. Ava hadn't. Noah set the sketch down with shaking hands. "He's the one who smiled when my dad fell." His voice cracked, but he didn't cry. He just pressed the cube to his chest and stared at the drawing as if daring it to answer. Ethan swallowed. Betrayal was no longer just corporate. It was personal. "We'll find him," Ethan said quietly. "But first, we need to move." He pawed through his jacket, pulling out a sleek AR headset prototype, one of the few physical things he'd grabbed in the scramble. Without hesitation, he walked to the corner and pried open a rusty locker. Inside, a set of old tools glimmered faintly. He slipped the headset inside, lifted the manifest, and tucked the prototype beneath a greasy rag. "This will buy us time," he muttered. Minutes later, in the cover of the storm, They slipped down to a late-night pawn shop on the industrial edge of town. Ethan pushed the door open, the bell jangling loud in the empty street. The clerk raised a brow at the dripping figures. "Cash for this," Ethan said, setting the prototype on the counter. The clerk whistled low. "You sure? This looks—" "I'm sure." Ethan's tone left no room. Cash changed hands just enough to buy a burner phone and food. As they stepped back into the night, the storm lightened to a mist. Noah tugged on his sleeve. "Where will we go now?" Ethan looked out across the empty road, then back at the boy clutching his sketchbook and cube. "To someone your father trusted," he said, "and someone I still do." The name rose in his mind like a long-buried signal, Professor Nadia Karim. The train station was nearly empty, just a scattering of night travelers beneath the fluorescent hum. Ethan bought 2 tickets in cash, his hood pulled low. Noah stayed close, clutching his cube in one hand and his sketchbook in the other. The boy's drawing of the man with the hawk-shaped ring burned in Ethan's mind. Kestrel, the very investors Ava had aligned herself with. It explained too much, and yet not enough. They boarded the last eastbound train, settling into a quiet corner. Ethan handed Noah a sandwich from a vending machine. The boy picked at the bread, gaze restless on the rain-streaked window. "You knew my dad," Noah said suddenly. Ethan hesitated. "Yes. Min was one of the best engineers I ever worked with. He believed in protecting people with what we built." Noah's eyes softened, but only a little. "He used to tell me that too, that machines should never hurt people. That's why he quit working so late. He wanted to make sure Ethan looked away. The guilt was there, sharp as glass. He had pushed too hard, trusted the wrong people, and Min had been caught in the crossfire." Noah broke the silence again. "He didn't die from a stroke, did he?" Ethan froze. The boy's voice was calm, too calm for someone his age. "What makes you say that?" Ethan asked carefully. Noah turned the cube in his hands. "He told me once. If anything happened to him, it wouldn't be an accident, and that I should look for patterns." He twisted the cube until all sides were scrambled, then set it on the table between them. "This doesn't just happen." Someone moves the pieces. Ethan studied him, surprised by the clarity in his young face. "You're right, and that's why we're going to Sao. See someone who can help us prove it." Noah glanced up. "Who?" "Professor Nadia Karim," Ethan said. "She teaches cryptography at Carnegie Mellon. She and your dad used to play chess every weekend. If anyone can help us decode what's happening, it's her." The boy nodded, silent again, but his grip on the cube tightened, as if the plastic puzzle were the last thread to his father. Hours passed in silence, the train cutting through mist and mountains. At dawn, they stepped into Pittsburgh's gray light. The city felt heavy with steel and rain, its skyline sharp against the sky. They found Nadia Karim's townhouse near campus, ivy crawling up its brick face. Ethan hesitated at the door, the weight of years pressing on him. Then he knocked. Moments later, the door creaked open. A woman in her 50s, sharp-eyed with streaks of silver in her hair, peered out. Recognition flickered in her expression. "Ethan Vale," she said flatly. "And Noah?" Her gaze softened at the boy. Noah whispered, "Hi." Aunt Nadia, her sternness cracked. She pulled him inside, hugging him fiercely. Then her eyes met Ethan's again, colder. "You've brought a storm to my door." Ethan nodded. "We don't have a choice." Inside, the townhouse smelled of books and coffee. Screens glowed with code in the corner. Nadia sat them down, her fingers tapping a rhythm on the table. "Tell me everything," she said. Ethan laid out the story. Ava's betrayal, the frozen accounts, the phantom stream of weights. Noah slid his sketch across the table, the hawk ring man staring back in graphite lines. Nadia studied it, her expression hardening. "Kestrel," she muttered. "I warned Min years ago. He didn't listen." Her fingers flew across her keyboard, pulling up transaction logs Ethan hadn't seen. At exactly 40 minutes past each hour, small transfers pulsed. Ava's signature. She looked up, eyes grave. "They aren't just after you, Ethan. They're after the boy." Noah stiffened. "Me?" Nadia's voice was gentle but firm. "Your father hid something. Something only you would know how to find, and they won't stop until they have it." Ethan's hand brushed the Fox keychain in his pocket. For the first time in days, he let himself exhale. They weren't alone anymore. But the storm was far from over. Nadia's townhouse smelled faintly of cinnamon and ink, the air thick with the hum of servers tucked into corners. Noah perched on the couch, twisting his cube with anxious speed. Ethan paced near the window, glasses slipping down his nose, rain streaking the glass outside. "Min's death," Nadia said at last, her eyes fixed on the screen. "They called it a stroke." "But the data doesn't lie." Ethan stilled. "What data?" She swiveled the monitor toward him. A set of accident logs appeared, time-stamped with the day Min collapsed on his morning bike ride. The biometric readings, the crash sensor data, it all looked neat on the surface. Too neat. "Look here," Nadia said, pointing to a spike. Brake line pressure dropped to 0. Then, a microsecond after, impact. If it were a stroke, he would have lost control gradually. This was sabotage. Someone tampered with his bike. Noah's hands froze on the cube. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Ethan knelt beside him. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I should have questioned it sooner." Noah's eyes brimmed, but he shook his head. "Dad told me. Patterns matter. He said if he ever didn't come home, I should find you or Aunt Nadia." His voice cracked, but he pressed on. He knew. The room fell quiet. Outside, a horn blared in the distance, sharp against the rain. Ethan looked back at Nadia. "Why kill him?" Nadia's jaw tightened. "Because Min wouldn't play their game." He knew Ava had aligned with Kestrel and Helios systems. He must have found proof, something big enough they couldn't let him keep breathing. Noah set the cube on the table. Its cracked surface caught the lamplight. "This was the last thing he gave me," he whispered. "Said it would help me remember, but I don't know what he meant." Nadia leaned closer. Min was a puzzle man. He never left anything simple. Ethan reached across the table, touching the cube with his fingertips. It wasn't just a toy. It was a message. And maybe the reason the boy was being hunted. The Fox keychain in his pocket felt heavier. Symbols, tokens, threads of memory turned into shields. Nadia folded her arms. "Ethan, the conspiracy is bigger than you. Ava and Kestrel want to erase your name, control the weights, strip away watermarks, and sell a military version. Noah is their leverage. If Min hid evidence, only his son can uncover it." Ethan rubbed his brow, the weight of it pressing hard. "So what's the next step?" Nadia's eyes narrowed. "We go on offense." But carefully. "You said you still have the watermark token?" Ethan pulled the small device from his pocket, laying it on the table. Its LED glowed faintly, a heartbeat in the dark. "This can prove provenance." "But it's not enough, no," Nadia agreed. "We'll need Helios data center logs. Cleveland. If we can show the phantom stream, tie it to Ava's signature, and prove the theft, then the narrative changes." Noah looked between them, small but resolute. "Then let's go." Ethan shook his head. "It's too dangerous." The boy's voice rose. "Dangerous already found me. They killed my dad. They followed me here. You think hiding makes it safer?" His fists trembled, but his gaze was steady. "I'm coming." Silence stretched. Then Nadia spoke, her tone softer. "Ethan, Min wanted his son to learn courage. Don't take that away from him." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. "All right, but we do this my way. No risks." We can't walk back from Noah's hand went back to the cube, twisting it once, twice, as though winding courage into his fingers. Nadia tapped her keyboard, pulling up train schedules and burner IDs. "Then it's decided. We leave tonight." Ethan leaned back, exhaustion and resolve battling in his chest. He knew the war ahead would cost. them all something, but for the first time since the vault had locked, he felt the faintest edge of hope. The night train carried them into Cleveland, steel wheels clattering through the darkness. Ethan sat stiff in his seat, hoodie hood drawn low, the Fox keychain warm in his hand. Noah leaned against the window, eyes half shut but fingers still turning the Rubik's Cube, its quiet clicks marking time. Nadia typed on a small encrypted laptop, her face lit pale blue. When the train slowed into the city, the skyline glimmered with industrial light, smokestacks and towers painted orange against low clouds. Cleveland was a city that never forgot the weight of steel, and tonight it carried the weight of their future. They slipped into Nadia's rented sedan, heading straight for the Helios Systems data hub. The complex rose like a fortress, anodized steel walls, floodlights sweeping the perimeter, cameras nested high on poles. Helios doesn't cut corners, Ethan muttered. No, Nadia said, parking in the shadow of a warehouse. But even fortresses have doors, especially ones built by men who think they're untouchable. They changed into nondescript uniforms, each carrying forged badges Nadia had prepared. Ethan felt the strangeness of it. CEO turned intruder, moving through shadows like the very attackers he once built firewalls against. Inside the gate, the air was sharp with ozone and coolant. Racks of humming servers lined the cavernous hall. Every step echoed. Noah stayed close, clutching his cube in one hand, the other brushing Ethan's sleeve. "Remember," Nadia whispered, "we're looking for Delta logs." Proof that the weight streamed out, and where they went, they moved toward the security checkpoint, then froze. A guard stood waiting, badge scanner in hand. He looked at them once, then slipped something into Ethan's palm. A key card. Ethan's heart jolted. It was too easy, too neat. The guard met his gaze briefly, then nodded toward the far hallway. No words, just a gesture. They passed through, the keycard humming green against the scanner. "Trap," Ethan muttered under his breath. "Or help," Nadia replied. They reached the archive wing, cold air blasting from vents. Nadia slid into a terminal, hands dancing across keys. Logs unfolded on the screen, streams of outbound data, signatures ending in Ava's telltale mark. 40. "There it is," Nadia whispered. "The phantom copy. And, look, the receiving node traces back to Kestrel's offshore relay." Ethan felt adrenaline surge. Finally, proof. But the screen flickered. A new message appeared, overriding the logs. 4 words in bold white text. "Head toward the docks." They exchanged glances. Noah tugged Ethan's sleeve. "There's more," he said, pointing at the message as it scrolled. "Auxiliary storage. North Pier." Ethan frowned. "This isn't Ava's style." Nadia's voice was cautious. "Then whose?" The answer came seconds later. Another message flashed across the terminal, signed with a name Ethan hadn't heard. "In months. Mira Kwan." His chest tightened. Mira, his former blue team lead, the one who had built their best defenses before disappearing into silence. She was alive, and she was inside Helios. Nadia backed up the logs onto a drive, slipping it into her pocket. If Mira's reaching out, she's taking risks that could kill her. "We follow," Ethan glanced at Noah. The boy's jaw was tight, but his eyes held no fear. "Okay," Ethan said. "We go to the docks." As they left the hall, floodlights flared behind them, alarms shrieking through the complex. The easy entry had expired. Now the fortress was awake. They ran into the night, tires screeching as they sped toward the lakefront, toward the unknown. Cleveland's North Pier stretched into the lake like a dark finger, waves crashing against concrete pilings. The storm had followed them here, wind sharp with the bite of iron and salt. Ethan parked the sedan in the shadows of an abandoned warehouse, shutting off the engine. The 3 of them stepped out, hoods pulled against the spray. Noah clutched his Rubik's Cube tightly, the cracks on its surface glinting when lightning split the sky. This feels wrong, Ethan murmured. Too open. Nadia scanned the shoreline, eyes narrowing. It's where I'd hide auxiliary storage. Noise from the water covers the hum of servers. Easy to mask. Ethan tapped the Fox keychain in his pocket, steadying himself. He wasn't used to playing intruder, but tonight he had no choice. Proof mattered. More than him, more than his reputation. They followed the pier, their steps echoing against damp boards. Ahead, a small warehouse sat hunched, its windows boarded, but a faint glow leaked from the seams. Inside, rows of server towers hummed. Auxiliary storage. Mira hadn't lied. A terminal near the entrance flickered to life as they stepped in. A single line of text glowed. Keep moving. Cameras are looped for 7 minutes. Noah whispered, She's helping us. They pushed deeper, Nadia sliding into another console. Within seconds, data spilled across the screen. Transfer records, proving the theft, tied to Ava's account signatures. It was everything they needed. But footsteps thundered outside. Ethan's heart raced. He shoved the drive into his pocket as the warehouse door creaked open. A woman slipped in, lean and sharp-eyed, wearing a Helios security jacket. Her hair was pulled back, her face gaunt but determined. Mira Kwan. She raised a finger to her lips. No time. You need to go, Ethan stepped forward. Mira, you've been... She cut him off. Embedded. Feeding intel. Ava thinks I work for her. I don't. Her eyes flicked to Noah. He's the reason I stayed. Min trusted me once. I won't let them erase him, Nadia demanded. Why risk yourself now? Because the boy's already marked as a target, Mira said quietly. Ava's ghost phone. She's been calling him secondary asset. If they get him, they'll bury what Min left behind. Permanently, Noah's face tightened. He hugged the cube, close, silent, but resolute. Ethan felt his pulse hammer. We have proof now. Logs. Signatures. It's enough to go public, Mira nodded. Then do it fast. Dawn is your window. I'll cover the leak, but once Ava realizes you're alive, she'll burn every bridge she can. The warehouse lights flickered as sirens wailed in the distance. Mira shoved open a back door. Go! I'll buy you time. Ethan hesitated. Once, she had been his most loyal teammate. Now she was risking her life again. Thank you, he said, voice rough. Mira allowed herself the faintest smile. Just finish what Min started. They slipped into the night, sprinting down the pier as vehicles screeched to a stop at the warehouse. Shouts rang out, but Mira's diversion gave them cover. By the time they reached the sedan, dawn was bruising the horizon, pale light breaking through storm clouds. Ethan gripped the wheel, breath unsteady. We end it now, he said. Nadia nodded. We go live. Show the world everything Noah sat in the back seat, cube in hand, his voice steady despite his age. Dad wanted the truth out, so let's make sure they hear it. The car sped toward a safe house carrying proof, resolve, and a boy who refused to be forgotten. The safe house was a borrowed loft above an old print shop, the kind of place with paint peeling from brick and ductwork rattling when the wind shifted. Ethan pushed the door closed behind them and leaned against it, chest rising and falling. The storm outside had weakened, dawn bleeding pale gray through the blinds. Nadia unpacked her laptop, setting it on a battered wooden table. She plugged in the drive they'd pulled from Helios, eyes flickering over the lines of code. Every packet matches Ava's signature. Always at 40. She wasn't even subtle. Ethan rubbed his temples, the weight pressing harder now. Subtlety wasn't her goal. She wanted me to see it and know I was powerless. Noah sat cross-legged on the floor, his cube balanced in his hands. He twisted it without. Looking, his gaze fixed on Ethan. She killed my dad, didn't she? The room went quiet. Ethan lowered himself to one knee, meeting the boy's eyes. We don't have all the proof yet. But the break data Nadia found, it points to sabotage. And Ava's people. They had motive. Noah's lips pressed tight. He twisted the cube sharply, then set it down, colors uneven but bold. Then she's going to pay. Nadia shot Ethan a look, warning, but Ethan didn't flinch. Justice, Noah. Not revenge. If we play their game, we lose everything. The boy looked down, his small hands trembling on the plastic puzzle. Dad said the same thing. Silence hung for a moment. Then Nadia turned her screen, showing a diagram of the conspiracy threads. Ava, Kestrel Capital, Helios Systems. Each line connected like a web. Here's the bigger picture. Ava erases you, Ethan, steals the unbound model weights, removes your watermarks, and hands Helios a product they can sell to the defense world. Kestrel profits, Helios grows. Ava disappears into power. Ethan tapped the Fox keychain against the table, its metal click steady. And Noah? Nadia hesitated. He's a liability. Min left something hidden, something they believe only Noah can find. That's why they're circling him. He's not just bait. He's the lock to the last piece Noah's chin lifted. I can handle it. Ethan felt both pride and fear not inside him. The boy had his father's courage, but also his stubbornness. Nadia leaned back, folding her arms. We need a counterattack. You still have the watermark attestation, right? Ethan pulled the token from his pocket. Its LED blinked slow and steady. It's the only piece of truth we have left. It proves the model weights originated in my enclave. No one else can fake this. Then combine it with the Helios logs, Nadia said. Show the theft in real time. If we broadcast this publicly, with proof tied to your token, they can't bury it. Regulators won't have a choice. Ethan's stomach turned. Broadcasting means putting Noah in the crosshairs even more. Ava will panic. Kestrel won't hesitate. Noah spoke before either adult could argue. His voice was quiet but unshaken. They already want me. At least this way, it means something. Ethan closed his eyes. For a moment he saw Min's face, laughing in the garage, tinkering with the first prototype, teaching his son about patterns. He saw the Fox on the whiteboard, crude and smiling. When he opened his eyes, resolve had hardened. We'll do it. But we need the final nail. Helios's offshore node isn't enough. We need their delta logs, the proof of the phantom stream. Without that, Ava can still spin the story. Nadia nodded. Then Cleveland was just the first step. The real fight is still ahead. Ethan stood, slipping the keychain back into his pocket. So, we plan it. Carefully. And this time, we don't run. Noah picked up his cube again, twisting one side until a face turned solid blue. His eyes met Ethan's, steady despite his trembling hands. Then, tell me what to do. The safe house lights buzzed overhead, dim and yellow. Ethan stood at the table sketching a crude map on scrap paper. His hoodie sleeves were pushed up, veins taut with focus. Nadia leaned over the drawing, her silver-streaked hair falling forward, eyes sharp. Noah sat nearby, cube in his lap, listening intently. Ethan tapped the pen. Helios has a node in Cleveland, but their primary logs, delta logs, are mirrored in their main data center on the lakeshore. That's where the phantom stream ends, where we'll prove the theft. Noah frowned. But it'll be locked down, right? Like the other place? More than locked down, Nadia said grimly. It's a fortress. We can't just walk in this time. We need disguises, timing, and a clean exit. Ethan nodded. We're not stealing weights. We're recovering proof. The attestation token gives us provenance, but regulators will say it's forged unless we pair it with Helios's internal logs. Once those are public, Ava can't spin it. The pattern will speak for itself. He looked at Noah. That's why we need you to stay behind this time. It's going to be dangerous. The boy's jaw set, his hands gripping the cube until the plastic squeaked. No, I'm not hiding again. They killed my dad. If I can help, I'm coming. Ethan started to argue, but Nadia touched his arm. He has a point. Min raised him to look for patterns. If Min hid something inside Helios' systems, Noah may be the only one who recognizes it. Ethan exhaled, the weight of guardianship pressing harder. He didn't want to risk the boy, but sending him away when the hunters already had his scent? That was no safer. "Fine," Ethan said at last, "but you follow my lead." No improvising. Noah nodded once, eyes burning with quiet determination. Nadia closed her laptop. "I can forge 3 IDS in uniforms. Maintenance crew. If we time it with the shift change at dawn, we'll have a 2-hour window before anyone checks the logs. But once inside, we need to move. Fast. And once we have them," Ethan said, "we go live. No leaks to reporters, no regulators who can be bought. We stream it straight to the public. Proof in real time." Nadia arched a brow. "You're ready to risk everything on one broadcast?" Ethan lifted the Fox keychain, turning it in his fingers. "Everything's already gone. This is about what's left." The room fell quiet. Only the hum of the old heater filled the silence. Noah turned his cube slowly, aligning one side, his lips moving in a whisper. Ethan leaned closer. "What are you saying?" The boy hesitated. "Dad used to say, finish the pattern. Don't leave it half-solved." He glanced up, eyes wet but steady. "We can't stop now." Ethan felt the words hit deep. He reached out, resting his hand on the boy's shoulder. "We won't." Nadia cleared her throat. "Then we prepare tonight. We go in tomorrow before sunrise." Ethan straightened, resolve settling into his bones. Tomorrow, the chase would end. Tomorrow, they would either expose the truth or be buried by it. He slipped the Fox keychain back into his pocket and glanced out the window. Beyond the blinds, the city pulsed in neon and shadow, a reminder of everything at stake. "Get some rest," Ethan said softly. "Tomorrow, we take back the story." Noah curled on the couch, cube clutched to his chest like a shield. Nadia shut down her laptop, though her eyes never softened. Ethan stayed by the window, watching the rain streak down. He whispered to the glass, barely audible, "Min, we'll finish it for you." The city still slept when they moved. Dawn hadn't broken, and the streets glistened under weak streetlights. Ethan drove, hoodie pulled low, his hazel eyes scanning every mirror. Beside him, Nadia adjusted the forged maintenance badges clipped to their jackets. In the back seat, Noah sat small but resolute, his cube resting in his lap, thumb tracing the crack down its side. The Helios data center loomed ahead, a fortress of glass and steel rimmed with razor, wire and humming generators. Guards patrolled with bored precision. To anyone else, it was impenetrable. To Ethan, it was a test of nerve. They pulled into the side lot just as a maintenance truck exited. Nadia flashed their forged credentials at the gate scanner. The guard glanced once, then waved them through. Too easy. Inside, the air was cold, sharp with ozone and humming circuits. The servers towered in endless rows, lights blinking like 1,000 restless eyes. Ethan felt the Fox keychain in his pocket, grounding him. As they turned a corner, a guard stepped out. He held a clipboard and a badge scanner. Ethan's stomach clenched until the guard's hand brushed against his, slipping him a card. A whisper followed, low and quick. "Auxiliary storage." "North Pier, Mira." Then the guard walked away, leaving no trace but the card in Ethan's palm. They moved quickly, following Mira's breadcrumb trail. Down a corridor, through a secured door. In a side room, Nadia plugged her laptop into a terminal. Logs burst across the screen, streams of data flashing with timestamps ending in 40. Ava's pattern. Always her pattern. "This is it," Nadia whispered. "Delta logs. Exact proof of the phantom stream." But before she could save them, a new message overrode the screen. "Head toward the docks. Look for auxiliary storage." Ethan's pulse spiked. "She's guiding us." Noah clutched his cube. "We should trust her." Dad trusted her. They ran, alarms faintly echoing now through the cavernous hall. Their window was closing. They burst out a side exit into the dawn air, sprinting toward the lakefront where shipping containers stood stacked like giant bricks. At the North Pier warehouse, a side door creaked open. A figure beckoned them in. Mira Kwan, sharp-eyed, lean, wearing a Helios jacket. Her voice was urgent, but hushed. 7 minutes before they know you're here. Follow me. Inside, auxiliary servers hummed. Mira pulled up a console and handed Nadia a drive. Delta logs. Clean copy. Kestrel's fingerprints all over it. Ava's ghost phone shows the rest. Ethan stared at her. You risked everything to get this. Mira's jaw tightened. Min asked me, before he died. Said if anything happened, protect the boy. I stayed inside Helios for him. Her eyes flicked to Noah. They won't stop until he's silenced. Secondary target. That's what Ava called him. Noah's grip on his cube whitened, but he didn't look away. Then we don't hide. We show the truth. The warehouse lights flickered as sirens wailed nearby. Mira shoved open a back exit. Go! I'll stall them. Ethan hesitated. Mira, don't waste my sacrifice, she snapped, though her eyes softened for a fraction of a second. Finish it. They fled into the breaking dawn, the city skyline sharpening against the pale horizon. In Ethan's pocket, the Fox keychain pressed into his palm. Proof in hand, a boy at his side, and the final step ahead. Tomorrow, the world would know. They hid in a borrowed studio above a shuttered cafe, its floorboards creaking under each step. The city outside was waking, horns and sirens blending into a restless hum. Ethan sat at a scarred wooden table, the Fox keychain pressed between his fingers, while Nadia configured a secure stream on her laptop. Noah perched beside her, cube clutched tight, watching with the focus of someone far older than his 9 years. This is it, Nadia said. Once we go live, there's no turning back. They'll know where we are. We'll either bury them or be buried. Ethan leaned closer, his hazel eyes sharp. Then we do it right. We start with the watermark attestation. Show the provenance. Show that Helios couldn't fake it. Then we hit them with the Delta logs, Ava's signatures, and the 40 pattern. We make the case undeniable. Noah's voice was small but steady. And we show them what Dad left behind. That it mattered, Ethan put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Yes, we will. Nadia counted down under her breath. 3, 2, 1, and the stream went. Live. Ethan's face filled the frame, the gray hoodie, the lean intensity, the haunted yet defiant eyes. His voice carried not just into the laptop mic, but into the homes of whoever dared to listen. My name is Ethan Vale. I've been accused of weaponizing AI, of hiding truths, of betraying the very principles we built on. Tonight, I show you the truth. He held up the token, its LED blinking steady. This attestation certificate is burned into hardware. It proves provenance. These model weights originated here, with us, not with Helios, not with Kestrel. Nadia shared her screen, showing logs cascading down, each transfer stamped *40*. The phantom streams pointed unmistakably to Helios's offshore nodes. And this, Ethan continued, is Ava Morell's signature. Every theft, every ghost stream, marked with the rhythm she always used. She tried to erase me, but the patterns don't lie. Mira's leak arrived on cue. Nadia routed it into the stream. Emails, recordings, Ava's own words, aligning with Kestrel's executives. Phrases like secondary target and removing watermarks scrolled across the broadcast. The internet lit up. Feeds erupted with comments, shares, reactions. Hashtags climbed in real time. Reporters began calling before the stream had even ended. Ethan's voice hardened. This isn't just about me. Min Park, one of the finest engineers I've ever known, died because he wouldn't surrender the truth. His death was no accident, and now his son sits here, hunted for the same reason. Noah's face appeared beside Ethan's, pale but steady. He lifted the cracked cube to the camera. "My dad gave me this," he said softly, "said it would help me remember." I think he wanted me to remember him, and now you will too. The boy's voice cut through the feed with raw honesty no adult could fake. The chat exploded. The tide had shifted. Then, sirens. Loud, close, closing in. Nadia killed the stream, pulling the drives. "It's out there now!" "We did it." Ethan grabbed Noah's hand. "Then we run." One last time, they bolted down the back stairs just as black SUVs swarmed the street. Federal agents poured out, not for Ethan this time, but for Helios. News vans pulled in behind, cameras catching everything. By the time the sun cracked over the horizon, Ava Morell was being dragged through an airport terminal, ghost phone clutched in her hand as reporters shouted her name. Ethan and Noah watched from a safe distance, breathless. The storm that had nearly destroyed them had begun to turn. "Your move, Ava," Ethan whispered, though he knew she was finished. The storm had passed, leaving Cleveland washed clean in the pale gold of morning. News anchors filled the airwaves with one story: Helios Systems and Kestrel Capital under federal investigation. Clips of Ethan's stream replayed everywhere, his calm defiance replayed beside Ava's frantic arrest at the airport, ghost phone seized from her hand. In the borrowed studio, the weight finally lifted. Ethan sat at the window with Noah beside him, both staring out at the skyline. Nadia closed her laptop, exhaustion etched into her face, but a quiet satisfaction too. "You've been cleared," she said. "Regulators are backing off. The attestation and the logs. You left them no room to spin." Ethan nodded slowly, almost disbelieving. He looked at Noah, who was twisting his cube with tired but steady hands. "And you?" The boy shrugged. "I don't know. I'm not going back to my old house, not after—" His voice trailed, grief flickering but not consuming him. Ethan put an arm around his shoulders. "Then you come with me. For now, until we figure out more permanent guardianship." Noah's dark eyes met his. "You mean it?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "Here, you won't have to run anymore." Later that week, the city's papers carried another headline: "Case reopened in death of data engineer Min Park." The tampered bike brakes, the financial links to Kestrel, all of it rising to the surface now that Ava's network had collapsed. Ethan stood in front of the courthouse steps with Nadia and Noah. Cameras clicked, but this time the attention didn't feel like a weapon. It felt like justice catching up. That evening, back in Redwood Hills, the house was no longer a trap. The vault had been reset, the alarms silenced. On the roof, Ethan unfolded a small telescope, one Min had once used during late-night coding marathons. Noah helped steady the tripod, his cube tucked in his hoodie pocket. The stars cut sharp against the clear sky. Noah peered into the eyepiece, gasping softly. "I can see Jupiter." Ethan smiled quietly, the Fox keychain glinting in his hand. "Your dad used to say the universe has patterns too. You just have to look long enough to see them." Noah leaned against him, the cube resting between them. "Then we'll finish it together." Ethan looked up at the sky, the weight of betrayal, loss, and fear finally giving way to something else, something he hadn't let himself feel in years: hope, the open. Guardians Initiative launched 2 weeks later, scholarships and safe havens for children of endangered tech workers. Ethan spoke little at the press event, letting the mission stand on its own. But when reporters asked why he started it, he simply glanced at Noah in the front row and said, "Because no child should have to solve the world's puzzles alone." Applause filled the room. Yet for Ethan, the truest moment of peace came not from headlines or vindication, but from a quiet rooftop, a boy at his side, and the knowledge that the patterns Min left behind had been honored. The telescope pointed skyward, the Fox keychain heavy in his palm. Ethan whispered what he'd promised from the beginning. "Here, you won't have to run anymore.